have a look at your presentation and for councillors to ask any questions that they may have. But Gil, it's really wonderful to have you with us today. I know you've been a good friend to our council for a long time, but it's really nice that you've come along and given us your time today. But I'd also welcome Grant Miller. Grant is a fellow councillor at Selwyn District, and he's a representative for us on the board. And then we have Hayden, and who's the regional manager, and Jeremy Parker, the Transwaste commercial manager. So I guess you're all going to take some time to share your aspects of the business with us. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to you. I guess, Gil, you'll lead us off. Have you met everybody around our council table?
I'm not sure.
No, maybe we'll just do a quick whip around then, and then we'll hand over to you. We've set aside about half an hour, your presentation, and then some questions if that's what councillors would like to do to understand better the business that you're doing. So perhaps Robbie's got a mouthful, so maybe
I'll start with me.
We'll start with Ross and we'll finish with Robbie. How about that? So Ross.
I'm good now.
Oh, you're good.
Are you good to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rightio.
Good morning, gentlemen. Robbie Brewerton, Southwood councillor, living in Hamley, based in Hamley.
Lovely, thank you very much, Robbie. Sorry about that. Ross.
Yeah, Ross Barnes, live at the other end of the ward, Mount Lyford, and Westward councillor, second term.
Cool, thank you.
Fiona Harris, Eastwood councillor. You've probably had a bit to do with my husband, Paul Harris, from time to time. Yep. Thank you.
Hi guys, Karen Armstrong, Westward councillor, I live in Waikato.
Thanks, Karen.
Gary Jackson, Southwood councillor, Amberley based.
Thank you, Gary.
Morning, Westward, Hanma Springs.
Pauline White, Southwood councillor, based in Broomfield, work in Waikato.
Cool, thank you. And we'll skip over to
Vince Daly from up Chile. I think I know your brother.
You take that offline later.
I came on council with Gary 20 years ago when you were just started, and there was a lot of upheaval going on.
There was, certainly. Thank you. Vanessa.
I'm Vanessa McPherson, I'm a Southwood
Yeah,
councillor.
Dave Hislop, Westwood councillor.
Great. So that's our full team. You know our staff, of course. So we've got Hamish and Dan over in the corner, and Judith and Jason in the back, and our trustee governance advisor Graham here, who does everything that, in as much as managing the technology for us today, which is playing up somewhat.
It's playing up, but don't worry. I'll stand up to do this because it'll mean I can use the clip easier, I think.
Okay.
But look, let me start off by just saying.
Thanks, Gil.
It is like sort of coming home to family, to be honest.
Yeah.
Coming to this council. You might be the smallest of the shareholder councils, but you are the host council for us. And we have a very special relationship. Not so much, well, is at the council table, but particularly at staff level. And, there's probably hardly a week goes by that there's not contact, or even a day goes by that there's not contact over, issues or at least discussions. So you hold a very special place for us, and to say even though you're the smallest of the contributing councils, that we respect that and we enjoy the relationship we've got, and that I think reflects well on both sides. That it's been an open relationship, and that's what we want to continue. So in that context, I'm going to go through this. Probably these guys will answer some questions if I can't. But we'll take questions as we go. Yep. But we'll try and get through the whole lot in the 30 minutes, or just under the 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. I'm told if I get this right, maybe I'll do it that way. What I'm going to try and cover today is a lot of emphasis on what we'll call sustainability. I know it's a bit of a buzzword these days, but what we're doing around that, and it's particularly around greenhouse gas emissions, etc., and some of the environmental stuff. But I'll try and cover some financial results, and then looking what happens, because we're starting actively as a company to say what happens beyond what we call KB1, which is the landfill that's there at the moment. What happens beyond that? First of all, I would like to just pay, a tribute to Gareth. Gareth passed away earlier this year, middle of the year. And when you think about that landfill, when you think about how it was developed, how it was even conceived, built, and then operated, that's the guy. And we really owe a huge debt, and not just Taranui, the whole of Canterbury. In fact, the whole of landfilling in New Zealand, the whole of waste, solid waste management in New Zealand owes an awful lot to that guy. And great guy, easy to deal with, good fun to be with, but hugely knowledgeable in the space that he worked. Oh, I'm jumping ahead here. Just very quickly, I don't want to go through this in too much detail. Remember, there's 5 councils that come together. You come together and your shareholding comes together under a Canterbury Regional Landfill Joint Committee. And that is 50%, the other 50% is waste management. It is a true 50-50 joint venture. It's been operating since 2000, or the landfill's been operating since 2005. The joint venture company was established in but we've been going 20 odd years, or since 1999, the company's been going.
We must have trick in the old days, 2003, when this was going through consent. Made the consent $10 bounty. We could have had the lowest rates in New Zealand.
Exactly.
I did ask Robbie. And he said, yes.
Well, we fought in that under
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, by then it had already been consented, but I became known because I, with three others, we led the community group that took us all the way to we got some supply. But the trick we missed the community group and the council at the time. Who opposed us because they were in bed with the company. But the Hurunui Council itself should have realised, hang on, we could shut down the activists that we were and get everybody on board to support the landfill. We could present the landfill company $10 for every truck. And they would probably, I don't know what it would be worth.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Rightio, thanks for that. That was a really great presentation though, wasn't it? We always learn a lot from them. So need to draw your attention back to our decision items. We're looking at 5.5, which is on page 50 in your agenda pack. Dan, this is your paper, so welcome. Good morning. Great. Good morning. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We'll see if we can finish this inside a good morning. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. We'll hear from you and then we'll see if we can work this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll probably just start off by saying that this, when I started to sit down to write this report, it was pretty much based on irrigation because we've already done some work there. So it's about what the options, but it turned into a little bit bigger than that, into the report that you see, because it kind of made sense to fit some other work into it to keep this keep the momentum on, I suppose. So what I do have is a report in front of you, which I'm presuming that everybody's read, which seeks to do a few things really. The first one is to continue the work done on the irrigation to get that up and running. The next one is we do have a tender prepared, or probably 9/10 of the way prepared, to actually developing the cricket pitch as planned. But also in doing so, if we are going to get people up and ready playing cricket, then there's probably some consideration for some toilets to be built on that site, because as you all know, a game of cricket can go on for a long time, and we need to facilitate that. And something else that the South Ward Community Committee, the South Ward Committee committed to a couple of weeks ago, was to build a path around the reserve, but noting that the council has delegation, so they've approved the funding, the expenditure, because they've got some money through their walking and cycling strategy that they've put aside for this. But nonetheless, council has governance over that reserve, so it's come to council to be confirmed. Now, also, before I go any further on this report is not about the concept plan. I know I've included it in it, but it's just to help see where the layout of the tanks, if you chose to go with tanks, and you can also see the footpath in there as well. So what we are recommending is that for the irrigation, that we run the irrigation from the bore directly. And we're doing that primarily because number one is it's cheaper, but also number two, you'll remember back to it caused quite a bit of angst in the community to have those tanks positioned on the reserve So currently they were moved from their intended location, which is near the bore. They're now sitting up on the edge on Double Corner Road. We've had no complaints about where they are to date, but if we were to establish those, maybe we might do. So nonetheless, we are proposing that it does run from the bore. Now, there are some risks that the report does talk about. But under its current guise, the irrigation area that we're talking about can be run from the bore. As I say, the tender is ready. Now, one bit to note on the tender is that it does include the construction of the wicket block. Now, the engineer's estimate on that is somewhere between 40 and 50,000. Now, I've been round and I've had a chat with Ash round at the garage, and he is still, I guess, adamant in his intention that they will apply to the Country Cricket Association to construct that. So he still feels that that's the right path, and that's the cricket club's view that they're going to do that. Now, that does create one issue for us, in that if we go ahead and release the tender without the construction of the block, and we build the irrigation, then they're going to be driving all of their plant to build that across the irrigation. So we just need to be mindful when we are laying out the irrigation that we do allow a pathway through somehow. And that either will mean that some of the irrigation will be done at a later date just to finish it, or there will just be a strip of grass that a narrow strip that just won't be irrigated. But that's something that we'll have to work through with them. So the recommendation here is that we don't include that, the construction of the wicket block, but we do facilitate the irrigation to deal with that. The pathway, as I've mentioned, so that's already approved by the South Ward Committee. Now, one thing that they have deferred the decision on is to place the footpath along the top of the bank when the bank comes around in front of the houses, or to build a footpath in behind. Now, I've been up there myself, and if anybody has been up there, one of my main concerns was if you're up top of the bank, you'd be able to see into everybody's gardens. But those fences are actually only waist height anyway, so it doesn't matter whether you're walking around the back of the bund or you're on top of the bund. And one thing that we're always attempting to do when we build these sorts of things is to think about the social environment. And when you go down there and actually have a look, now, whilst round the back of the bund isn't really conducive to it, people are walking along the top of the bund. So in my mind, it would make sense if that's where people prefer to walk, if they're walking the dog, walking the kids, if they're behind the bund, they probably can't see, but if they're on top of the bund, then they probably can. However council wants to lean, that's entirely up to them. The South will put it into council's hands to decide on that one, but that would be my view, having experience wandering around there myself. The other part of the recommendation is the toilets. And the toilets are very similar to the other toilets that we put in around the district. And the last ones we put in were better. They're plumbed directly into the sewer network, as these would be. And in order to provide access from the path that's built around, we could provide a lime chip path, which would just be temporary. Or, depending on how you want to go, how you decide with that concept plan, there is part of the concept plan does have a formed path direct to the building that's going to be on that reserve, if you choose to go that way. So we've got one or the other. We can either do a temporary thing just to get to the toilets, or we can actually build a formal pathway to get there. I think that's about the high and low of it, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions on any of the rest.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Dan. And the report, really does give us some background and consideration for what you're recommending as well. So that's pretty cool. But I'm sure there might be some questions in the minds of councillors in regard to this paper and looking at the recommendation as well. So in your hands. Thanks, Vanessa.
Through the chair, I actually don't have any questions, but I do have a couple of statements. Number one, just regarding the footpath around the perimeter of the reserve. I was there yesterday just to clarify a few things in my mind, and I can see the reason why people are currently using the top of the bund to walk on, and that's simply because of the fact that behind the bund, between the neighbouring fences, there simply isn't enough room to walk. I would not be advocating for a pathway to be formed on top of the bund. I think if I was a neighbouring property, I would have a big issue with that. I have a vision that that bund will be planted with trees, and if people wish to sit amongst them to picnic, then so be it, but I certainly wouldn't be encouraging people to use that with bikes and dogs and so on a daily basis. Just a couple of other points that I'd like to highlight. Whilst I don't certainly intend on relitigating this years of process, I do want to highlight that when the decision was made to include Cricket Oval in the draft management plan in 2016, international or otherwise, by a stakeholder group that consisted, the decision that was made on this day, and that stakeholder group consisted of the Amberley Cricket Club coach, 2 other cricket club members, and a property developer who was using the proposed oval as a carrot to sell his sections. And it was all based on a submission that was made by the said cricket coach at that time. And I firmly believe that this is at the very least undemocratic, and I feel that I have to highlight it. The purpose of the Local Government Act requires us to make these decisions on the behalf of our community. And our community have spoken loudly and extremely clearly, with the majority of submissions who've said they do not want this cricket. And I ask you, is it fair or equitable that 10 years worth of funds are being used to satisfy the whims of a select few at the expense of the rest of the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Message has been received. Thank you, Vanessa. But is there any other questions or clarity? I mean, we do have a recommendation. We do understand the history, and we also have a clear understanding of our want or desire to move forward with this project as well to meet the needs of the community. Gary.
Madam Chair, putting a slightly different view to Councillor McPherson's. What troubles me with the proposal at the moment, I'm not saying the principle is wrong in terms of proceeding to consider irrigation and so on, but we're working here with a concept plan, which I think is number 3, where the scale of the development is not consistent with, if you like, a conservative view of community expectations. 121 odd people, and I think the submitter this morning referred to it, were strongly of the view, 121 submissions in our own draft reserve management plan process, looking for community activities. From my count, there are 8 submissions, particularly around cricket. I still believe there can be a balance between the two, but the point, I guess the issue for me is where that point of balance sits. Hamish and I have traded some notes around parameters and so on. Unless I am wrong, the scale of the cricket ground that you're seeing here in this map is still of international or even higher size. The South Ward, in wrestling with the whole concept of the Eastern Reserve, picked up on a theme, I guess it's 9, maybe 12 months ago, around village green. And that was, I guess, a discussion that the South Ward was having around trying to find the balance between cricket at an appropriate scale and balance on the site with the other community interests. And out of that, somehow and how that discussion unfolded, the idea of a village village green approach with regard to cricket and the feel of the whole site was adopted, and those words themselves are in our draft reserve management plan. But the drawing, the concept diagram we've got in front of us, unless I'm mistaken, and I've tried to measure it and analyze the scale and all the rest of it, is at least 20% bigger than what it needs to be as a minimum size for a village green club cricket ground. And before we go spending whatever it is, $150,000 on irrigation to fit the cricket pitch circular, and I've seen the diagrams in here, we're at risk here of making a financial decision that is in fact not appropriate, or we're overspending. But the issue is that the scale of what we're building in that irrigated cricket ground, in my personal view, and I'm not yet convinced I'm wrong, or no one's convinced me that I'm wrong, is out of step with what actually we need as a village green club cricket ground. And it's certainly out of scale with what the community has told us in all of the deliberations, all of the submissions around, let's call it a 50-50 approach to this ground. That is not 50-50. And that's the point I make. So in a way, we've yet to have that discussion, I think, this afternoon. So in a way, this discussion around the mechanics of the site and the investment in irrigation and where the tanks go, whatever, I'm troubled that it's in advance of the bigger discussion that we're yet to resolve. If we put it to a vote now, I will abstain the vote because I just don't think I'm ready to vote on it. Sorry I took so long.
Right. Yeah.
Just through the chair, just to add something else briefly. You know, I went through all of the submissions again the other night, and there was a massive amount of people who didn't speak about the cricket necessarily, for and against, but the consensus, they wanted a children's playground. There was a huge amount of these submissions. Assuming that what's in front of me today, I don't see a contingency, assuming we run to budget, there's going to be no money left for a decent children's playground. And this community is going to have to wait how many years to replenish our DC funds to build in a decent playground that we can be proud of. I'm really obviously very angry and frustrated about it because it is so unfair. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Madam Mayor, just to, I guess, cast some balance maybe. In terms of the submissions, whilst we didn't receive many in favour of the cricket, we did have a delegation come to council chambers a couple of months ago. So whilst it wasn't a written submission, it was there's quite a few numbers just to provide that balance.
I took those into account in my numbers.
Thank you. Thank you, Pauline, and then Robbie.
Couple of points. I guess just to follow up on Gary's point in regards to the size of the cricket ground. You know, during that reserves management submission process, we sat and we heard from all of our community, and the really positive thing that I took out of that process was actually in that room, I felt that the animosity slipped away and that there was a real understanding of the history behind the decision for cricket. But there was an understanding that both Councillor McPherson and Councillor Jackson have pointed out that, you know, that other portion of the reserve within that, we could cater for many of the things that were asked for in the submission process. And I felt that when we ended the deliberations at that time, that we'd really come to an understanding that we could move forward with cricket as it was, as it has been prepared and planned, and we could move forward with everything else, so that we were going to create a space that would really do both. And I walked away from that process thinking, wow, the animosity that had existed had gone, it had dispelled. And at the time, we talked in depth about the size of the cricket ground and the history of how it came to be. And we talked about the ground preparations that have been done. And within those, you know, email conversations that have happened between Hamish and Councillor Jackson, and we've all been privy to that, there was that really, I think, clear explanation in regards to if we were to now look to reduce the size of that cricket ground, given that all of the engineering work has been done to get four correct, that actually we would be relitigating and respending another very large chunk of cash in order to re-level things. So from my point of view, and this is where I thought we'd gotten to as a group, I'm in favour of retaining the size of the original plan. The rest of it is a concept, and I know that when John spoke this morning, he said, there's a fine line, as I wrote it down, there's a fine line between concept and intent, but this is a concept plan, and it is a draft, and that's the story that we have to tell. And we have the ability moving forward to impact, that concept and to listen to, what we're hearing. Just in regards to the walkway, I've been and wandered as well, and I also sat on 2 different occasions over the last week and just watched to see what people do. And they do walk around the top, and I do agree with Councillor McPherson, that's probably because actually it's a clear path at the moment. We discussed this at South Ward, and the feeling that I got from there and my point of view is actually that the top is the place for the pathway, and that it should be amongst trees, and that there should be seats around as well. And that behind the bund, then that would lend us in the future to having another track of some sort. So we could perhaps have a walking track, and then we could have a cycle track, and that was my thought. So I'm in favour of that pathway that South Ward has approved funding for it being on the top. And I did consider the socialness of it, and I stood up there and I looked, and I stood down the bottom and I looked. And at the moment, people are on the top. It's not going to be different, I don't think. So that's where I'm at. In regards to the irrigation, which is actually what Dan is asking us to consider, I completely respect what Councillor Jackson's saying. It's really hard to consider this without that further discussion, but actually we really need to get things moving there. We really, regardless of, yes, it's a cricket ground, but what we understand is other than that pitch, that ground can be used for other sports, other than that central bit. So to put the irrigation in there, that's actually good, not just for cricket. It's good for us in that we can probably utilise it for some plantings. I'm hoping, that's one of my questions, I guess. But, we're going to have a ground that can be used for multiple sports. So that's where I'm at the moment. But can I just throw a question out, and it's perhaps not for this paper, but I'm a little bit confused now about Eastern Reserve Village Green. And I'd like some clarity on that today, because before we get things written into decisions, because I know that the South Ward Committee they actually passed a resolution without delegation to rename the Eastern Reserve the Village Green. And I did ask if council would consider that, because they didn't have the delegation, therefore it hasn't been renamed. Hamish, you refer to it as the Village Green in your paper, and Dan's paper and Judith's paper is the Eastern Reserve.
Yeah.
Please, can we sort that?
Yeah, look, I think this is.
I've gone off track there. But.
Can you just respond?
Yeah, I can easily explain that.
Yeah.
So in your reserve management plan, you call it the Village Green / Eastern Reserve. I was adopting the more up-to-date nomenclature, possibly in advance of it being finally approved, but I think that the reserve management plan considers it the Village Green. So if you adopt that reserve management plan, that's what it'll be.
And that the reserve management plan's coming to, I thought it was coming here, but it's obviously, is it going to be December, or is it going to be early in the new year? Yeah, okay. So that's the time frame we're looking at to get certainty.
Just wanted to clarify if we're making decisions and we've got one name or the other.
That's right. I mean, we're just in that interim stage, really, I think. Pauline, thank you for your comments. Just coming around the room, I'll go to Vanessa and then Dave.
Through the chair, when I look back at minutes from meetings over the years gone by, the then Cricket Club had made on a couple of occasions declared their intention to fundraise for the development and the ongoing operations of their ground. I proposed perhaps that is an option that we could revisit. And if we were to do that, we would at least be able to free up a decent couple of $100,000 that could actually be put towards developing another amenity within that reserve, perhaps a playground.
Thank you, Dave, and then Fiona.
Yeah. I wasn't totally part of a reserve management discussions that you had. I sense the absolute frustration from the officers and certain councillors. I know principles cost money. I know I'm pragmatic, and I know I'm solution-based. And I know irrigation is going to be useful for anything, so I agree with Pauline. For the love of me, I can't understand why we need an international cricket ground. It makes no total sense. So the pragmatic is that's the principles. You're sticking by that. Well, that's going to cost you money. I can't see why you just can't shrink it and put some car parks around the outside of it. But you guys, that's all concept plans, and then that frees up all this other area to do all the things Vanessa wants to do. So why are we stuck on the principles? Because the principles are going to cost us money and anxiety. But just get on and do it.
That's the intention of this paper, but we're just hearing some options around that. Fiona.
Look, I understand that people in the local community have got frustrations that nothing's happening there at the moment. And there can be some great things happening there, I think. And I felt the same as Pauline after the submissions. There was a wee bit more understanding that it wasn't all one thing or the other. I also feel for the cricket, because it was originally, this piece of land was originally purchased for that purpose. And we weren't going to be, and everyone was excited something was going to happen, but it was only could be funded out of development contributions. So yes, we're going to get this done, but they had to wait a long, long time for that fund to build up to be able to do some of the work. And then we all had to come to an agreement. If indeed there is a cost to shrinking that ground from how it's been set up, we have to pay to make it smaller. I think that seems to me to be a waste of money. When there's still room. I think we get to splitting hairs then if we're going to save a few metres there. There's still, I think, quite a bit of room to go around. And it's been a long time. We really need to get on and get something done. The cricket group have had to be patient. And you look at the rise of cricket and women's sport and all of those things and the opportunity for children that are missing out along the way. I think there is some middle ground, but I would like to see us move forward and install the irrigation, make sure we move ahead to get kids playing cricket on this field as soon as possible. It brings economic benefit to the town when it's like people coming in, families come in. I mean, I don't really watch cricket, but I'm sure that there's the real fans that sit there all day and then the other people that go out and do a bit of things in between. So it's good for the area as well. So I would like to see us just get on and get this done and stop nitpicking on some of the stuff that prevents everything happening.
Yeah, cool. I think, Robbie, you had your hand up and then I'm going to go to Gary.
Yeah. Look, I recognise there's three papers and there's a wee bit of overlap in them, but I would like to bring this back to this paper and the recommendations that are in it. If I start with number 4, the construction of the public toilets, I think I've read in there that would be something similar to Huranui Bridge or Credit Alley, and that it's something that could be moved, or if something bigger or better was built later on, that's good. I'm not talking about building a standard concrete block immovable toilet, I presume. So that's number 4, good for me. The pathway around the perimeter, I went and had a look this morning, and I can see exactly why they've been walking around the top, but I would prefer to see it around the bottom for a number of reasons. Apart from the privacy thing, you are up on stage when you walk around the top there, but also that embankment where people are going to sit and watch whatever's happening out in the green field. It's a certain width on the top, but if you put the path there, people can't put deck chairs and things on the steep sides. That's where they want to put their deck chairs and watch the sport. So I'd sort of think we could fix that easily. I'd imagine if a digger went around the top of that, and I know because there's talk of retaining walls and that, I don't think we'd need that. I think if a digger went around taking a bit from the bottom of that side, putting it over that side, whatever, that would be a fairly easy fix. So I would prefer to see pathway go behind the bun and leave the bun for people sitting and watching and whatever they're going to do. There may be room if the bun was flat and we were to have both on top, but to me, I'd put it behind. So that's the pathway. The number 2, wishing the tender to develop a field for payable services and the cricket block. A couple of things here. Excuse the pun, cricket had been used as the bat by people with other interests to bash this whole thing from the word go, absolutely ignoring the fact that we're talking about a reserve here and that a big part of that from a lot of submissions, we need a big green space. People just want some grass. What they're doing now, they're walking the dog, they're hitting the golf, whatever, kicking the ball, whatever they're doing out there now. And it's talked about as if it's like a croquet field or bowling club or something where it's going to be fenced off and everyone else stays off. It's just cricket. That's ridiculous. And around the wicket in the middle, I imagine the boys have put some cones, put some pop wire pegs or something like they do in the middle. Even during the cricket season when they're playing cricket, when they're not out there playing cricket, they're not practicing on Sunday match, whatever, everyone else is using that green space. And they don't want some weedy old rough, hay paddock. They'd like some nice grass they can run around and not lose their kneecaps on. So that's an important thing. That's the big green space. You don't want a big cluttered area. People have said they want space. Well, there it is. The fact that cricket uses it some of the time is, well, that's great. So I talked to the cricket there. I checked in yesterday with the cricket boys. One of their members that was here this morning, not here to speak on health and safety by the look of him, he's very active on the cricket club now. So far they've got 2 kids teams ready to roll. They've outfitted them with uniforms. They've talked to Canterbury Cricket and Towns provided cricket gear equipment for them. Now the wicket block, I asked them around that, and yes, they're working on that, and they were looking at hallowed soil at Waikari may be available. The next place is somewhere in the North Island, believe it or not. But they were talking to Canterbury Cricket, who felt that they already have a big pile of that and might be able to help them out there. So that one's mid-discussion, but believe me, they're an active group and they are working on that one. And my take on it was that yes, they would like to do that. But what you're talking about is in the middle of the paddock is digging out an area, compacting it, putting in the special clay and compacting that. So I would imagine that could be done in conjunction with other works. I mean, it may be a case of getting a friendly man with a truck to get this hallowed earth from A to B at the right time, and as simple as that. So that's going to reduce the numbers. The last item, a lot of subjects come across this table which aren't exactly in my field, but this is one that I do know a bit about and have been involved in a few. This is a mathematical equation when you come to irrigation, and it's about getting X amount of water over a certain area for decks and everything else. And David, you guys understand this, absolutely. I don't think that a submersible pump on its own is going to do it. We haven't even tested that bore yet. The one at the domain we tested for days, pumping it, timing it, how long did it take to go up and down. And even then, 120,000 litres, we think that's a lot of water. They'll blow that in 2 hours. So my concern there, I know that the one at the main, and it's right beside the creek, you see the water, it will suck down, and sometimes it has to catch its breath, and the aquifer, has to flow through the shingles again, and get back, and so the pump, it does go on and off. My concern is just relying on a resubmersible, apart from running all day and burning itself out. You can only run a few sprinklers at a time, has to go pretty well all night, but there's nothing, we have no proof yet that bore. It's different if you're hooked into the council main, you knew the water wasn't going to stop, that'd be easy. But in this situation, I think it's a given that we need to have that buffer storage. So that brings the tanks into a must-have. The question of where they go is another one. I whether the money's put to put them underground or tuck them behind the bund or whatever, that discussion may come up in the concept, which is I like the concept. I listened to all the discussions too. And I came back from overseas and looked at that. I thought, well, that's pretty well ticked off most of the things that we discussed that could practically fit together. And so I thought, that's not a bad job done there. But yeah, this irrigation thing, I know that when you get into the main, we have pods. And you can run up to 15 at a time, but the catches, somebody's got to go down and shift them every couple of hours. And I got tired of that, and another guy got tired of that. They tend to drop off a bit. Rugby club are excellent on their side, the other side, not quite so good. So to get it set from day one when you're doing this, we're putting the pipes. I understand the suggestion would be you put in your big laterals, big pipes. You're not necessarily putting in every sprinkler and every small lateral at the time. You get your big feeder pipes and things, and then later on, when it's all grassed over, whatever, I think you use your little mold plough then and put in the shallower stuff. It can be if you're not doing it at the same time. But that field there, the big green space in this reserve needs to be as irrigated as easy as possible. And I'd like to see it, whether it's on a timer or whatever comes on at night, whatever. But the people living across the street aren't going to walk across and shift the sprinklers even. So we'd be setting ourselves up for a problem down the track. So my recommendation there would be around irrigation would be, we've got to have the storage. Don't rely on just a little pump and an unknown well. Put the storage in, whether it's underground or whatever. If we're going to use tanks, if we're going to put them down Tuttle Corner Road now and reshift them, I think if you're going to reshift them anywhere, I'd start straight in a second location where they were. But underground seems to keep everybody happy. Apart from that, I just look, 10 years, let's get on with it.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I think that we're getting some considered opinions around here. Sorry, Dave, I just need to go to Gary and then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm trying not to relitigate over the earlier things, but I want to correct a couple of things that were said in relation to the points I made in case people have misread or not understood what I was trying to say earlier. With regard to Councillor White, she made reference in there to the cost of moving the actual cricket wicket. I did not, in my communications with Hamish, ever suggest that. All I've been talking about is leaving the wicket where it is, because that's where the investment's gone in underground, and adjusting, if you like, where the darn rope goes around the boundary, because where the rope goes then influences what other activities from a community viewpoint can be placed in there. So the difference is when you look at the map, in the big circle, which is an international plus size, and the black line you see drawn there, that's what a club, whatever you call it, village green size cricket field would look. That then impacts or frees up a lot of space for other community activities. I've never suggested moving the actual wicket because the investment is already in place. And yes, I might be nitpicking, that word was used somewhere, but I'm doing it because coming out of the submissions, it was as clear as night and day that at least it's got to be a 50-50 approach. I don't want to have to justify to the 120 submitters that cricket got 60% of the ground, which is about what it is there now, and we've squeezed the community up. If nothing else, let's look them in the eye and say, we got the balance, and oh, by the way, we got a village green style cricket ground that everyone can use when they're not playing cricket. I agree with all of that, but let's get the balance right. I'm sorry if that's nitpicking.
Thank you, Dave.
Just clarifying for Dan, you've obviously got an irrigation plan and the bores have been tested. I know enough that storage won't cut right away, but a waterforce or a Pines or something have designed your system, and it will be an automated system. There's nothing, we're not pioneers. So we're not agreeing, whatever.
Let's see if we can answer that question.
So it's a
total design. It's been designed by, you can see it on there, Sport Surface Design and Management. So, and the issue around
so they're right qualified on pumps and
yeah. That's
irrigations.
The issue we've got, within the costings of the surface, we need a bigger submersible from what we've already got. So that's part of the cost to do that. But in terms of the storage, we've got 4 tanks, I think, where they've got 120 cubes. But what we've been told, and it's listed as risk number 46. So the tank capacity is 120,000 litres. The system for one cycle will need between 50 and 80,000.
Yeah.
So that leaves a buffer, but that buffer you've got is only probably a day at best. So it's not as if when you storage, you've got days and days and days. It's got, if the pump fails, then you've only got 1 day's worth of storage anyway.
So a question of that you bought, basic things is you bore tested your bore, so you know what it flows, and you know you must have drawdowns when you've got your consent for your bore anyway. So technically it's sound, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, you just want to know, is there sufficient water to be drawn?
Because, storage, you told me the tank storage, So you're putting 3 mils or 4 mils of water on the ground is a lot of water.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. Well, firstly, there is no consent on that because it's within it's permitted activity to take water 4 litres a second and under. So that's what we're operating under. In terms of the drawdown, we haven't attempted to do this volume of water as a drawdown, but irrespective of whether you're going to try and run it off the submersible or run it into tanks, you've still got the same issue. You still need a submersible that's going to be drawing lots and lots of water, whether it puts it straight on the grass or puts it into tanks. It's still
Okay.
You still need to pump test your bore.
Oh,
I wouldn't be investing any money unless I'm pump testing the bore to know it can deliver the water on a sustained, otherwise that's common sense, but you know that.
Okay. Is there anything more that you can shine a light on as far as the availability of water or the stress testing or the submersible pump versus the tanks? Is there anything more that we need to know to make this the decision that gives us confidence about our actions going forward? Is there anything more that we can offer?
Well, Madam Mayor, I think inherent in all this sort of stuff that we're undertaking, there's risk associated.
Yeah.
And one of the risks is we have not drawn down this bore to this magnitude.
You probably need to do that before you commit the money to the renovation. I don't know you got your water. But you have taken advice from technical people, you wouldn't want to put this system in and you ain't got your water source.
Yep.
So the question that you're raising is that, have we done that? And if not, can we do that?
We certainly can do it. But it's about changing some of that infrastructure that we've already got there now. So there will be a commitment to some cost to get to the point where we can do that drawdown.
I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
Are you confident with the bore we've got that it will deliver the water what's the probability we're going to spend whatever money so that the water source is going to be adequate to supply the water? I'm just going back to if I put irrigation in, I'm not going to put the infrastructure in unless I know I've got the water source. Because I don't want a stranded asset.
Madam Mayor, our confidence comes from the fact that the amount of water we're talking about 3 litres a second.
That's quite a lot of water. 3 litres a second is enough to irrigate 6 hectares of water at 4 mils per day, 5 mils per day. So someone worked that out, it's a lot of water. So you can if I run a bore, I can run a bore in different areas, but by other bores in the area, your confidence of running it. I was out at Barkham, I've known guys that have drilled bores and got nothing. So, and you might run again, it's talking to the guys like Clemence's and McMillan's and knowing what your bore will deliver. I'm not an expert, so I'm just asking that the water source is,
Okay. It feels, sorry, Pauline, can I just Okay, you go.
I was just going to ask if there was some data on that when we were making a decision outside delegations, but in regards to where we put the bores, I feel like there was some data from our water aquifer studies in regards to the, what it might deliver. But
I don't know off the top of my head, Madam Mayor, I've just asked a question, so I'll wait for a response to come through, but it's like any other bore that we drill.
Yeah.
You have to, there is a degree of speculation when you're drilling these bores, and we have found water, and we've found it, from the drawdowns that we have done, we're reasonably comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But
we can do a full 7-day pump test on it.
Yeah, I take councillor Hislop's point and.
Yeah.
we can-
I'm just asking the question.
No, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, that it's about having the confidence. I mean, it would be great if we can progress, given the comments that we've received, but it feels to me as if we're in a position where we're looking to support the information that we've received via the community, given there is still, a degree of uncertainty around opinions. But I think that we owe the residents an opportunity to say we are confidently going forward, given the information we've received and the desire to do, an activity that's available that's going to be an irrigated green space, occasionally used for cricket, and the rest of the time is going to be used for multi-purpose, exactly what it is now. And I guess when I was listening to all of your comments, I was reflecting on going down to Mandeville Sports Ground, where that's I don't know how many hectares at Mandeville, but even in the rugby season, they have 4 pigtail standards, some, electric fence tape, and people respect the block area, and the rest of the area is a multi-purpose. Kids are riding their bikes, they are kicking a ball, they are playing footy next door, or whatever they want to do. So I see this development as exactly the same, and I am really keen to see us progress, notwithstanding the comments we've received and the information from our community. But I actually think we owe it to ourselves and the information to continue with a progress around this wonderful parcel of land that is in a residential area that will have multi-use, whether you are an aging member of your community having some fresh air, or you've got little children that you want to give them a chance to go and expend some energy. I think this green space actually provides that, with the opportunity to have some extended development as we go on. But perhaps just a better understanding about the ability for the water to service the desire is kind of the one thing that but I think other than that, it would feel as if we need to progress that, and I'm keen for this to happen at this point. So Robbie, I see your hand up, and I'm asking for you as a final question.
Yes, well, it's around the finance really. Just come back, this business of the tanks and things. To me, that's the old bagpipe. He blows into a bag, and that needs to make a lot more noise for a lot longer. You can't blow straight to the pipe all day unless he's got a lot of wind. But the costs here, we just would like clarified, please. We've got from
Get that in the minutes.
I hope that simplified for you. I hope we've got from the tanks later to be moved, we've got 130 grand, 15 grand. So I would take that it's 145 grand to be pumping out of the tanks temporarily and then shift them. Am I reading it right then that if we were to put an in-ground tanks, it would be 105, so 40 grand less on day one. And then if we're going straight from the bore, the 20 grand, I presume that's just around the price of the pump or whatever. Can I just have that clarified? How do the dollars stack up? Am I reading that right?
Madam Mayor, yes, exactly as you said it. So page 54, the sprinkler system itself is 170,000.
Yeah.
So from the bore, we need a bigger pump. We need a kiosk with some VSDs in it. So just be one of those. At the moment, we just make sure they're available. But you can imagine a small kiosk like you see the power stuff come from main powering. So have that rather than a shed, because we know that people are concerned about the aesthetics of the place. So put that near the bore. So all of that stuff is around about 20,000. So that plus the sprinkler system is 190, which is what we're recommending. But if you chose to leave the tanks where they are on double corner, eventually when you build wherever the building goes and move the tanks there, that's 145,000. But as you say, you could have the in-ground tanks next to the bore at 105,000.
Madam Mayor, can I just say one thing to give Robbie some hope or fear? I use a submersible pump and pump 80 litres a second out of a ground, far more efficient. So again, I'm just reiterating, it's Dan's technical people that can sort that out. So, you know, tanks are a red herring. A submersible pump will be far more efficient if there's a water there.
Okay, I think that's kind of helping us, for me, to get to some, you know, that the one thing that I've heard from you, Dave, and understand, you know, you've got a huge history in that, that actually understanding is the availability of water there. If we can confirm that, then.
And the other thought I just thought about, if we were ECAN and we were over 5 litres a second, they would be making me do the drawdown tests anyway.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So, and that's just, yeah, we would never.
Rightio.
Could I just make one more point around the positioning? Just from better experience, if you've got a problem with shifting sprinklers, or you've got working on a sprinkler and the pump shed's 200-300 metres away, that's a pain running back to turning things off and on just maintaining or working the system. So that's something just to bear in mind as to where the control centre is versus the irrigation.
So I guess what our job is here is to provide some governance oversight as to progressing this paper or not, and the management side of how it's going to happen is left for their you know, professionalism to bring, notwithstanding some of the information that's been shared from some of the governors around this table that have got some experience around water. So, you know, that's what it feels like. That's where we're at the moment. So, yep. Final.
No, I'm past it.
Yeah.
I was going to move with one change. In number one, the installation of the irrigation system, to keep it open for the officers to test and do everything else, whatever. If we would change that to the installation of the irrigation system sourced from a submersible bore pump, because the rest of that around that has to be fleshed out, I think. Do we need tanks? Is the water going to keep up? Whatever. I think if we could change that to keep a wee bit of leeway there. The other four.
And your comments around that, does that kind of make sense to you, Dave? Just to check in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, okay.
So could I just ask
a final comment?
Two questions actually. So firstly, I just wondered about the location of the toilets that we're talking to propose, because I'm absolutely in favour of constructing these toilets as they would be anybody using that space. And the second question would be, in regards to the pathway, the question is top or bottom? Do we need to make that decision now, or is that something that, given that South Ward has approved the funding?
I think the toilets is probably will come in at the subsequent paper, maybe. I mean, here it's just the principal discussion. Are we going to support the toilets or not? So I think that's probably what we need to be doing around that.
Moving into the next level.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah. The pathway, can we, on top round, is that something we need to nail now, or is this just a principal discussion that we've got support from South Ward to construct a pathway and the final configuration of that?
Madam Mayor, I think, it gets a little bit tricky if you want to build it down the bottom, only in the sense of process, that there will be extra money to build retaining walls if we need to. But ultimately, that's a South Ward committee decision. So if council's preference is to say, well, we'll build it around the bottom, then I'll probably have to go back to the South Board just to confirm that final 25K. But I think that's just a matter of process.
Yeah, okay.
That's the correct process. And then just in terms of if you are going to have a conversation about the concept plan and decide where the toilets are going to go,
Yeah.
the pricing that's provided is based on 100 metres of water pipe and 80 metres of sewer pipe, which gets it roughly to where you see the building on the
Yeah.
concept plan. So if you want to move it somewhere else further away, then that will impede that price. But if not, then all good.
Okay, so really, so I guess what I'm wanting for you now is pathway on top of the bund, round the bund is probably some direction around that would be helpful. And then I think we can look at the recommendation as written, swapping out the word sourced from directly as per Robbie's offering. Is that what I'm hearing? Yep.
Mayor, I think it says perimeter, so it doesn't, we do have to specify up or down, and can that be worked out? If it's perimeter, it can be
Round the outside?
around the outside.
I think the question is about the funding.
Yeah.
Because the.
Yeah.
It would be impact,
Yeah.
more or less,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But by perimeter, it leaves it open.
Yeah.
For discussion, further discussion, so doesn't it?
But does it give a direction for things to start happening?
Oh, I think officers
Yes.
Yeah,
have listened to a fairly
yeah, that's right.
good conversation they can take from there.
Okay. And final comment?
Through the chair, I just wanted to talk about that actually on the concept plan, that walkway is on the ground, it's not on the bund. Just wanted to highlight that.
Within the perimeter.
I know, but I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
It's a concept plan.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So the concept is a walkway that goes around the outside.
and the likelihood when there'll be amenity planting, I mean, that's going to change it, you know, get some trees, some shade trees there. It might be a smooth path or it might be Wiggly Park. We're all of those things haven't been decided, but I think the principal discussion is that we are looking, as I said, notwithstanding all the information that we've heard today, but actually wanting to progress with knowing that we've got certainty of water and it will be a pathway around the perimeter of the reserve and that we support the construction of toilets. I think that's what we're deciding here. So if that's the case, is there anybody looking to move the recommendation or not?
I did.
You've done it? Done it. Okay, so we have a mover. Thank you. And you're happy to second that?
With taking into account the conversations we've had about testing express.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody like to speak for or against that? Okay, I'm going to put the motion, all in agreement to that, please. Oh, sorry.
I wanted to speak against.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I missed you.
All right.
And
I just wanted to say, I'm not quite sure which councillors around this table today will be happy explaining to the community that I'm sorry they're going to have to miss out because all the funds gone towards a club that had a questionable existence up until a few months ago. If I voted to support this today, I feel that I am supporting a process that's been marred by careless oversights. I have to add, and I'd like this noted, all of this, Graham, please, if you can, and I would like it noted that I am not questioning management process. I'm questioning governance. Careless oversight, blatant conflicts of interest, and poor governance. And for that reason, I will be voting against this in its entirety as I see today in front of me. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? Sorry, I don't want to overlook. Okay, I'm going to put that motion, all in agreement to the recommendation on page 50 of your agenda. Please say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Abstaining on this vote.
Sorry, you'd like it recorded and Gary is
On this
abstaining.
vote recorded.
Yep, so everybody else got their vote recorded. That motion is carried. Thank you very much for that discussion and I guess we'll continue with this process. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Village Green delegations, is that a quickie or not?
Yeah, it's real quick.
Okay, thank you, Hamish.
As everything to do with this piece of land is.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh, this one is quick.
So we've already had a discussion about why my paper's titled the Village Green, not the Eastern Reserve. So this is specifically for the land that we call the Village Green, formerly known as Eastern Reserve in Amberley. It's not any of the other village greens in the district. It only pertains to this specific reserve. This follows on from a meeting that we had where officers clarified the delegations in August 24, and there was some discussion at that meeting about input from the South Ward. And so the officer's recommendation is that the council amends the delegations to the South Ward Committee to include an oversight role for the development of the Village Green. So it moves from that previous resolution to that the council retains direct control of the Village Green development and that South Ward Committee is delegated in advisory capacity. So that means that anything to do with the Village Green will be run through the South Ward for their views and advice, and that you'll authorise governance officers to make the appropriate change to the South Ward Committee delegations so that it's be enacted. So that's the paper. Ready to move.
So we got a mover and a seconder. Thank you at this point, but a question to clarify.
Absolutely, and support. I just wanted to clarify, those delegations would be revisited at the training changeover.
Yeah.
To Councillor Whittington.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
That was what the council decided.
Yeah.
Thank you, happy to support.
Okay, thank you. Moving.
Yeah, quick point of clarification, and it could be an obvious question, but I gather that this will obviously supersede the ARAG's charter, that they have the Eastern Reserve is actually within their charter. That will be up to them to remove it.
Yep. ARAG's not our group.
No, but I just wanted to point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Everybody else clear?
Yeah.
Robbie?
Yep, absolutely happy with that. And my assumption would be that whatever sport or group or whatever would then feed into the South Ward and it would come through that channel. And if it was things, the likes of the advisory group for the domain or the reserves, that if it was something within their interest that their thoughts would be gathered, that's all. They're advisory, that's all. So I'm in full favour of this.
Wonderful. There's no further comments. We have a mover and a second, Gary and Vanessa. Comments have been raised and received, but all in agreement to that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? That motion's carried. Thanks, guys. We will now break for lunch. We have got approximately 20 minutes maybe to have lunch, and we need to be back here by 1 o'clock. We've got information papers starting with 7.1, which is the Eastern Reserve's financials. Might look at doing the updates from various committees by just on the papers perhaps, unless there is something, but you'll need to be really specific. And we do need to get through the public excluded before 2 p.m. So yep, we will break for lunch now and we'll see you all back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
I haven't had a meeting.
Oh, that's okay. Just before we get started, Dan's just got some update around the water question. So perhaps if I could just go swing to you first before we get Judith.
Yes, thank you. So the drawdown tests were done. And the drawdown test was done at 3.5 litres per second, so a little bit more than what we needed for. But it was run for 6.5 hours, noting that the bore's 28 metres deep. Over that 6.5 hours, it held static at 11 metres. So that gives us all the confidence. I mean, who knows what's going to happen next week or next month, next year? But in its current form, it's good.
Okay, satisfied with that, folks?
Yep.
Great.
Technically, it's fine.
Good stuff. Okie doke. Welcome back. As I said, we've got about an hour and we've still got a reasonable amount to get through. We will take Judith and Jason's report and then briskly hop through those reports from various committees because we do need to action the public excluded content. So if we could aim for, we'll review it at 1:30. How about that? So Judith, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the trifecta on Eastern Reserve.
It's an information paper though, Judith. Yeah.
Village Green.
The village, well, yeah, I've got So I first of all will note that the concept plan, which is attached, will be renamed to Village Green. And I will ensure that the reserve management plan page also refers to Village Green. My recollection, it called it Eastern. So we will line all those things up. I think it's really important to note this is an information report. Yep. It's an updated concept development plan. And it's come about, and I've been, like many of you, been through the minutes, and there was reference to Gary, your redesign to get to a new map 4. So this is in effect the new map 4. The important part is still the reserve management plan, which will list all of the potential activities that can be carried out on the reserve, just like it does for every other reserve. There's a range of activities that could be carried out on the reserve. So this is the same. This concept development plan will not sit in the reserve management plan. It's limiting because every time we want to review it or change it, we'd have to change the reserve management plan. So we'll stick to the side, and it's important when that Eastern, when that Village Green reserve management plan comes back to you, that it's captured all of the correct wording for all of these activities. So this plan, and I mean, it's a little bit back to the future in terms of the shaded area. It's the grey area. It's referenced as a indicative future development area, courts and fields, and it's laid out in that way simply to show available space. Not that those activities will go there, but that's the space that's available for a range of activities, including those, but not necessarily those. The car park, the district plan will require car parking, and so that's why we've got a small amount of car parking to start with, and then future uses a further area to be developed at a time that's appropriate or when there's a need. The other change was to shorten up the bund to allow for the cricket nets. That all just didn't work in the way it was. And actually, in discussing this with the chief executive, the bund was built further than was originally intended, and that was the intended location of the cricket nets. And 6 is the little mower shed, gardener shed. The other thing to note is the area down the bottom It refers to a half basketball court, a playground, a scooter track. Again, that is an indicative area. And at the time that the funds became available, the council would look at the funds it had and then it would decide what it was going to build next. And if it was going to be a playground, then it would, at that time, would then do a more detailed design of what should go there. So this is a concept, is showing a space that's available for a playground. It could be any kind of combination of playground, but it identifies that space. In terms of the toilets, it's intended that they sit up in that area 4, which is where the pavilion is, and I think we've made a change to call that just pavilion, not cricket pavilion. In that case, it is a more multi-purpose type pavilion in the concept. So they are the main changes. You will see the indicative perimeter track is around the bottom. South Ward have approved the link 16, which is through to Plover, and an extension at 20 of the footpath to along Double Crook Corner Road to Plover Avenue as well. So it's, reinforce it over and over. It is a concept plan, and it is to, I suppose, show at this stage what will fit, but how it's developed in the future will be up to the council at that time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Questions to clarify? Thank you, Vin.
Through the chair, Judith, can you clarify for me, please, the process? Assuming in a couple of years' time, there's a chunk of change, that fund has been replenished somewhat. When it comes to deciding what then next to focus on with those funds, what is the process then? Is it just a matter of that to come back to governors, or will there be, I know there probably won't be a requirement to go back to the community, but will councillors at the time revisit those submissions, or what's the process there? Well, yeah. Please.
We'll go. Yeah. So it will go to South Ward.
Yep.
For their advice to council, and South Ward will make a recommendation to council about what's going there. Don't forget that South Ward will be highly likely to be juggling the development of this reserve with the development of the new reserve on the corner of Sales Yard and Anderson.
Right.
So there'll have to be some choices made about where play those sorts of things.
Thank you.
I think also to follow up on that last report, there was about 173,000, all going well. There'll still be some money left over.
Okay.
And one of the things that we want to talk about probably for the next long-term plan is being probably better. How do we trying to forecast DCs? And if we can forecast those DCs, then we can actually put projects into the long-term plan rather than getting caught up in this cycle once we've got the money. Actually try and plan it out a lot better than we are.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. But I guess to answer Vanessa's question, that's sits with the delegations that we've just passed, go to South Ward recommendation through the council.
Yep. I also note that South Ward contributes about 10%, so it's 90% DCs.
Yeah.
So South Ward will have to approve its end of the deal.
Yeah, so there'll be discussion there.
Yep.
And come through for us to consider it in its fullness.
Yeah, it would just make it a little bit more complicated, but the footpath is not being funded out of the Village Green DC. The reserves DC is being funded.
Walking cycle,
yes, which was approved by South Ward.
Yeah. Okey-doke. Oh, Karen.
I just wondered if we've wanting to check that we've got the mechanisms in place. I think there's been suggestions a couple of times that maybe the cricket club could be in a position to support various aspects of the development of the cricket facilities. How would that, it would be great to proactively welcome that contribution if we could, do you know what I mean? Do we have the mechanisms in place to have that conversation or have that linked in? Because they would be best to do those applications in their own right, obviously. How do we facilitate that?
Well, that, to me, that sits outside this concept development plan.
But I'm just wanting to check that we've
linked
Yeah,
Mm.
it doesn't get lost because, I mean, there's a group of passionate people and they're willing to, fill in applications and seek funding and so on. So do they just connect in then with the South Ward group or?
So we have officers that will support people in their applications, in the application process, and help them to figure out where to apply. They've still got to do some of the mahi themselves, and Dan has been keeping in contact through a Cricket Club member locally. And I just spoke with James before about that. So they understand that we have an expectation that, and it was always an expectation that Cricket Club would block. When it comes to things like the pavilion and so forth, I mean, we've moved away from being a cricket pavilion now.
Yep.
So I think probably our expectations on those things would be a lot lower.
I think there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no provision in your numbers, Dan, to establish a job.
No, mine excludes that.
That's by default, the expectation is that,
and they're clear.
And I think
would do that, otherwise it will need to come back to the council.
40 grand or whatever it was, that
There's
was,
no provision for.
no. And I think that was identified in the previous paper, wasn't it?
Intense.
No, that's good. Okay,
Just to answer your question, the Cricket Club can't apply for some of the grants and that because they're not a trust or, not like body. So that was where they would probably ask if the council can assist in that area. I think we've done that sort of thing with all bowling clubs in there. But I think even if it's so there's ways and means, but yes, they'll be looking to look fundraising themselves.
Great.
okay,
Thanks.
okay. Any other questions around this information paper? Seems like it.
It's been a great discussion, and I think we've all learned a little bit more, and I'm happy to move that the information be received.
Great. Thank you, Fiona. Do I have a seconder?
No. Gary had a question.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm just going to say I will abstain for the same reasons I did earlier. I'm not disagreeing. I understand it's part of a process, but I still have the same issues that I highlighted in this morning's discussions.
Yep.
Therefore, I will hold back.
Yep, that's fine. So I've got a mover. I've got a seconder. Hands up to second.
I'm willing to second, and if I could just add to that, thanks Judith for the presentation, particularly for highlighting that this is a concept plan. And I'll just go back to John's presentation this morning where he said, fine line between concept and intent. And I think we as councillors are really good if we can just continue to tell the story that actually what we heard in the submissions, and I have actually the plan that John and Greg and Marty produced and distributed, and it has on a croquet park, community garden, rugby and soccer, and I absolutely can see how that can fit. So thanks Judith for highlighting that it is a concept and we still have the space and the capacity to do exactly what our community's asked us.
So I have a mover and I have a seconder. Robbie, you've got a hand up for a comment or?
I can speak for part of my comment.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep. When I saw uncannily like one I've seen before a long time ago, but I can see that most out of all the feedback and everything, that whatever we can fit it in, this is a pretty good. We've done our best there, so I'm happy enough with this. The one thing I would suggest, while we've still got a blank canvas where we don't get too far down the track, is along that Fantail Ave. As I talked about, reducing the cricket oval to get space, but there's a massive amount of waste space outside that bollard fence. And while we haven't got cars and things there, it would be nice just to see that bollard fence bought out, because otherwise what's going to happen is probably what will happen anyway, car parking or not, people will just drive it on the car park and own the grass, and that's what will happen anyway. But with that bollard fence moving right out in the swale and a footpath outside or whatever, we can gain a lot more space, particularly along Fantail Ave.
Okay, thank you for your comments and support of the recommendation.
I know we're in a hurry. Quick question, Judith, can you please tell me what are the minimum amounts of car parks that are actually required to be in the reserve as per the district plan?
I'll just come back to you on that one.
Thank you. And I'll be speaking against,
Do you want to do so now before I put it to vote?
pardon?
Would you like to do so now?
I'm
Before I-
speaking against.
Yep.
I'm not-
That was it.
Don't need to say, I don't,
That's it?
probably for the reasons I spoke to against.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yes, I'm speaking in support because, as Judith says, it is a concept. I do want to support comments that Gary made earlier about the 50-50 thing. For me, we can approve this concept plan and still have the oval shrunk in a bit and allow more space around the outside. But I'm happy to trust the process over time that will inform that.
Thank you. Any other for or against? No, I'm going to put that motion that we receive that information, all in agreement to that, please say aye. Against? Thank you. You'd like that recorded?
Please.
And an abstention. Yep, but the motion's carried. Thanks very much. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Dan. Now, Jason, you're on speed dial.
Thoroughness.
Yeah. This is an important paper, so I don't want to, yeah. Thank you, Jason. Radio councillors, we'll move to the financial papers. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Madam Mayor. So the financial report's just in the same format it's always been. So 4 months at the end of October. The financial report itself is there on page 70 through to page 94. I don't propose to go through it in detail at all, and I would take it as read. If there are any specific queries that you may have as councillors, either now or subsequent to the meeting, just sting out and I can from there. I suppose I'd just point out that page 89 is the thermal pools and spa just recorded $180,000 surplus for October, but that was still a good $100,000 lower than what was budgeted for, and currently we're just about $500,000 behind the first 4 months of the year. So it's just pointing out so there's no surprises in that respect. Jason, roughly where were we this time last year? Or I know we were behind for the first part of the year last year, and we did catch up towards the end. So, but yeah, I couldn't give you. I can provide that information just for direct comparisons to the dates last year where we sat.
Okay, so we'll get that by email, the comparative data for this time last year to this year's, I guess, financial status. Okay. Is there any other pieces or papers that you've come with questions for Jason? If you just draw us to the page number and.
Well, Madam Chair, if we just stay on the Hanmer Springs number, I was going to wait till we got to the page.
Yeah.
That shortfall year to date at 509,000, Jason, what does that represent in terms of our total rates income? I mean, is that, once we have to put the rates up to gain another 500,000? I know I'm adding apples and comparing apples and oranges here, but I'm just trying to get my head. Is that 5%?
Yeah, well, our total dividend, pure dividend that we're pulling down this year to offset rates is 1.5 million. So it's a third of that. Our total rate take for the
32,640.
Yeah, 32 million. So. No, I can't do anything in my head.
5 over 326 at 0.15%.
0.15.
5 over 326.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm sure Graham and the team are working on a recovery plan. It's happened with the previous year, but I will do the comparatives.
I guess through the chair, it'll be an important discussion at our management meeting on the 5th of December.
Mm.
Thank you, that's all.
Yep.
Sorry, Robbie, you had a question on the financials then, Karen?
I just wanted to double check page 80, the grants, there's 3 of them running out next month. Am I reading that right? High school, they're all on roads.
I can't answer that. I'm sure that the community team are are well aware of their reporting obligations, making sure that if there is a finish date to some of those grants, that they would have had discussions with the grant providers ahead of time to see whether it can be extended if that work is still to be done.
Thank you. A couple of things briefly. Page 68, points to note, second bullet point.
Okay,
just with the
I'll get
minor
on to
breaks,
those. Yeah, I mean, I'll do the financial report and then I'll do the other components of
Okay,
the
so
financial report.
if I just zip down, I have one other question about the campground. Well, you know, the income from the campgrounds across the district. I think it said in the old report in there actually that there was going to be a bit of analysis, given that we've changed our system. And I wondered if we had that information or if we could be sent that, just to get a sense of pre and post the camp or whatever you call
I
it.
wasn't at the ops meeting, but I think that paper came to ops. Is that correct?
It did.
Yeah.
And Murray. Two councillors.
Okay, I haven't spotted it.
Murray Community. Murray,
Yeah.
Read, right, okay.
I'm not sure if it went to councillors, to go councillors or to the Murray Community Group.
I don't think I got it.
Anyway, I'm sure it can be sorted out.
Yep.
Okay, so what Karen's looking for is the,
If you ever look at the
key.
papers for last operations meeting, it's in the papers.
Yeah, okay, good, I'll have a look, thanks.
Okay, and then the other part of the financial report, is the capital expenditure report. At the moment, we're actually ahead of. Again, if there are any queries about the financial reports that you have, just or later on, just sing out, and I can drill down a bit deeper than I have here. But the components of the financial report, I did want to talk about the rates report there. Again, in October, October 24, the balance of rates owing was 9.5 million. At the same point last year it was 8.9 million, but it's about a 7% increase from last year, but that is still less than our overall rates increase this year. So that trend of being less owing continues, but there are still a level of ratepayers that there is some difficulty in recovering the debt from. The key thing I wanted to talk about at the time was the Treasury dashboard there, and a couple of key things to note. Our debt levels, 71 million, 61 of that is in term loans and 10 in term debt. Our liquidity ratio, annoyingly, just a little bit underneath our limit. We need to have liquidity greater than 110%. At the end of October, it was 109.98%. So I will request that you note that there is a minor breach to our Treasury policy in that respect. Of real note is on page 103, and the key number I always focus on there is the all-up weighted average cost of funds, including margin, that sits at 4.78% now. At the end of September, it was 4.91%. Prior to that, it still had a 5 in front of it. So that is just reflecting the drop in the short-term interest rates. And particularly of note is the official cash rate at the was reduced to 4.75% on the 9th of October. The next OCR review and monetary policy statement is tomorrow afternoon. And it's much anticipated because there is still expectation that there'd be at least 0.5% drop, maybe a 0.75% drop. Just noting the 90-day bank bill rate at the end of October was 4.52%. This morning, only 3 weeks later, it's 4.32. So the market has largely priced in the fact that the OCR will drop by 50 basis points tomorrow. So the rest of the financial, the Treasury information is there. And then page 108 through to 112 is the level of internal debt we have, and as I tend to focus on page 110, which has the thermal pools, the water, the sewer, and the stormwater. And you can see at the end of October, the internal debt for water was 44 million, and for sewer was almost 11 million. So close to 55 million relates to those two waters of our total 68 million. And another 16 million with the thermal pools. So that equates to almost all of our external debt in those three categories. I'm happy to answer. I know it's very, very much a whistle-stop tour of the financials for October. Happy to answer any further questions.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that we can't offer more time to be. Yeah, Jason. But if we're happy to move on, if you've got questions, they need to be raised. Circulate them to Jason, but CC us all in so that we all get yeah, that's right. So we all get a shared understanding of your questions. So, is there anything else that anybody would like to raise before we move on?
I just move that the information be received.
Yeah, with the notice the breach in the liquidity. Yeah. Happy to second. Thank you, Gary. So we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further questions here, I will put that motion, all in agreement that we receive that information. Please say aye. Aye. As against, that motion's carried. But thanks, Jason. I'm really apologise for that. But if there's any questions, they'll come via your email. Thank you. Radio Graham, we're on Lagoima. Is there, this is reasonably self-explanatory, but just take us through your.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the one to note, the one from the newsroom, they had a short turnaround. We often get that from media requests saying they've got a story until we have it in 2 days. Or, in this case, we just couldn't get the information through. So we did make contact, deadline had passed, and the person had gone overseas in the meantime, so we haven't heard anything more. So if they do still want the information, we'll get it to them. Yeah, sometimes we just can't get it done in time. So, but happy to take questions.
Tom?
Item number 3, the tree removals. Which one that one was?
Oh, sorry, Mary, I can't remember that. I'll have to I'll send an email on that one.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tom. I see some other hands up there. No, someone happy to move that we receive this information. Thanks, Karen. Thank you, Pauline. All in agreement that we receive it, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Hamish, the monthly performance report, perhaps just items of interest, please.
The only one of any interest at all, Madam Mayor, is the recycling to waste ratio. We are at 28%. We're better than 31%, so still under. We did have an increase to waste volume for the month compared, and recycling volume was flat. So,
thank you. Questions from councillors in regard to that? I'd like to move that we receive that information. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ross. All in agreement with that, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Thank you. Karen, the tourism update.
Yep, thanks very much. Taking it as read, really. Basically, staff have said that they have the resources, you'll see there in the first bullet point, to do the DMP implementation work required. And what they mean there is that they'll either do that in-house or contract aspects of that, but still within budget, they believe. Community sentiment survey is, steps to get that underway, sorry, are in hand. And the comprehensive comms plan is partly to enable a community to better understand the economic benefit of having the pools, and also of having tourism generally in Hiranui. So obviously we have significant benefit from money that visitors spend, and we just wondered that, felt that that might be a story that we can tell better than has been to date. You'll see there that one of the projects that's going to be advanced is a welcome mat, and I believe tourism staff will work with Vicky at Amberley NZ as well to help get that underway. And under a report to the Audit Risk Committee, as a result of that, the board have agreed to consider future governance arrangements for the board, and have papers to come to the February meeting to look at that. Apart from that, happy to take everything else as read or answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen, for that.
There's nothing, I'm happy to move.
Information. Yep, accepted. Cool. Thanks, Karen. Is there any questions of Karen? No, so Karen's happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Vanessa. All in agreement that we receive that information, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, that's carried. Thank you. Ross, operations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the interest of time, I will, get quite a bit written down, but I'll not go through that. Is there any questions regarding any of those items? It's quite a we've got read of the last operations meeting. Is there any questions regarding any of those items? I will move the much to receive.
Thank you, Ross. Seconder. Thank you, Fiona. All in agreement, please say aye. Against, that's carried. I mean, if you wanted to, whatever you've scribbled down, if you wanted to send it through, but it'd probably be in the ops anyway. So yeah, and it'll come through matters. I mean, a lot of the topics are probably ongoing anyway, so they're likely to come through at future meetings anyway. Thank you, Ross. Pauline, strategy and community.
Yeah,
update.
Everyone will be aware that the Walking and Running strategy is out for public consultation, and that we've all received a copy of that, and we had a very thorough report from them in regards to the age-friendly survey results. Very interesting, and work started on the Te Mele public places flyer. And if there are any questions, I'll take it as read and take it a minute.
Question.
Sure.
So what did come out of the Hiranui age-friendly survey results?
Now that was a very thorough presentation. Perhaps I could ask Vanessa if she would forward the slide presentation, because the visuals were fantastic.
I just asked you to keep it.
Yeah, there were a few things. I'm just trying to think.
Connectivity.
Aging population.
Yeah, aging population, but obviously it was only targeted at the population aged 60 and above. One of the key things, transport, no surprise, that's a thing that's come back through. A number of residents who are volunteering but wishing to volunteer or to volunteer more. But there are a number of things that might be of interest, so I think it would be best if I ask Vanessa if she's happy to share that, and then you can pick out the things that you find are important. There was some very good discussion about, now we have these results, what do we do with them? Because if you have done a survey, Dave, then you want to use those results for some sort of proactive action moving forward. So I'll arrange that with Vanessa.
Because that's the question I've got. You know, what's the point of doing the survey?
Yeah, and Vanessa certainly made contact with a number of people, and there's actually a group that are focused on our
the right word. The steering group's been meeting for a wee while, hasn't it? So, you know, representative of
the building, as well as we go, oh, what about these people? What about these people? And I guess what really was really powerful about that was one of the other key things that came out was the number of people that responded to the survey digitally, which goes against everything that we kind of assume about our older population. And we know that in the past we've had some some mentoring rather with youth and older people. And now that opens up the possibility of actually aged peer one-on-one mentoring. And it would seem from our discussions and from the results that actually one-on-one is much better than the fantastic programs at the library, you know, they provide with stepping up, but older people, you know, perhaps it's nicer for them to be in a one-on-one situation, or they've got a different need to the person next to them. So I'll arrange to have that forward.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Pauline.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send it to
everybody.
And probably when I sat there in the survey, there was nothing in it I didn't already think, so, yeah, just.
But it's good evidence.
Vanessa, comment?
I just wanted to add that I did, although Vanessa drove this entirely herself, which I thought was tremendous work, but I did find that a lot of questions are quite generic and I didn't think that they were specifically amenity related. But in saying that, I was impressed with the fact that there tend to be an overall satisfaction amongst that demographic, which was quite reassuring.
Okay, and I think this is a work in progress. This isn't just a one-hit wonder. It'll come back through. So this is really just, if we can just get the information into the inbox of all the councillors, I think that'll be helpful. Thank you. Pauline, are you happy to move?
Yep, happy.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Karen. Agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, that's carried. Thank you. And Youth Council update. I'm going to be reliant on Dave. Were you at that meeting?
Take it as read. We had the walking and cycling strategy. They gave their portfolios. They're a pretty active young group of engaged people.
Yep.
So, you know, their formals went pretty well and
thank you. Happy to move that. Thank you. Someone like second? Thank you, Gary. No questions. All agree that we received the information. Please say aye. Those against, that's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm sorry that was a bit of a rattle through, but in the interest of time, we now have public excluded minutes and 2 items which meet the threshold for public exclusiveness. You've read that and understand that. Someone happy to move that we go into PE? Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Tom. All in agreement to that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you.
Does anyone want a hard copy of that extra report?